Powerful new technologies have improved every industry around the world, bringing speed and precision to tasks that were time-consuming and labor-intensive. The impact is immeasurable. However, there is one area where technology is underutilized: finding families for foster children. At any given moment, there are over 400,000 children in the American foster care system. Social workers are overworked, underpaid, and overwhelmed. They do not have the tools to effectively find supportive families for all the foster children who are put in their care. From the moment a child is brought into protective care, she is assigned a social worker that tries to identify stable, healthy family members for placement. Finding these family members can require locating family that is removed from the immediate circle of dysfunction. They may even be unaware the child is in the government's custody. Right now, the process of finding families is an intensive paper-based method combined with phone calls, manual internet searches, and knocking on doors in the child's neighborhood. Because it is so resource-intensive, very few children can receive this level of effort. More often than not, the children are placed with foster families and then moved from home to home to home until reunification or permanent placement is made. This causes stress and trauma for the child who may have already suffered neglect, abuse, and abandonment. Extensive family finding is a successful process, but it needs to be scaled up. In the world of Ancestry.com and Facebook, we find it unacceptable that those responsible for our country's greatest asset are not fully supported with modern technologies, so that all foster children can find their families. Just imagine what would happen if we use proactive software to build out a family tree for every foster child in America. Imagine the speed at which this technology could help social workers identify family members, friends, and supporters of the child. Imagine how quickly this software could highlight locations, backgrounds, and criminal records. Our Family Connections software tool will scour public records and social media platforms to help social workers build out a family tree quickly. Imagine what would happen if every social worker in America could have this intuitive technology working alongside them, finding families for every foster kid quickly and effectively. Connect Our Kids not only imagines this scenario, we are working to make it a reality. Our technology will replace the resource-intensive manual system with a cloud-based Family Connections platform. This automated assistance software will give child welfare professionals time to do their real job, helping children and their families. We imagine a world where every child is connected to a safe and loving family. We will not quit until this is America's reality. And we hope that you join us.
I actually started Face Forward because I am a survivor of domestic violence. And it just makes perfect sense for something that I have gone through personally to give back and to help someone else and let them know there is light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm very proud to have received the Humanitarian Award from Face Forward. The reason I'm proud is because of my association with the organization, not something that I've done.
The event, people leave with their heart filled, knowing they've given to something amazing. But at the same time, their memories of the evening are beautiful, of the performances that we had, the singers, the dancing, the light, every detail is in my galas.
Through steadfast ways and caring deeds, Face Forward has improved the lives of many and has made the city of Los Angeles and the world a better place in which to live. Thank you.
What Face Forward does is they rebuild the lives and faces of women and children who are survivors of domestic violence. It's been expanded to human trafficking and to other cruel acts of crime, and now we've recently opened up to help veterans who are not being completely served by our VA system within the country.
We need celebs. We need celebs to get them. I could say 1,000,000 times a day what we do. But if a celeb does a tweet or sends a message, it changes the world. It changes Face Forward's world. So their fans see it, they get involved. So having a celeb and having press and having a red carpet really makes a difference. It gets the message out around the world what we do.
One way sex traffickers lure foster youth is by getting their nails done. Sexy Boss Babe provides quick nail kits to foster youth to protect them from traffickers. Each kit includes instructions on the signal for help hand gesture they can use in public if they are experiencing violence at home or a victim of sex trafficking. Someone will see and get help. Your support of the SBB movement can prevent sex trafficking.
There are about 500,000 foster youth in America, about 30,000 in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is the highest number of foster children per capita of any region. And our children are aging out with 2 to 5% graduating college. The ones who are in college do not get enough help from the government to have housing so they can have a stable foundation while they're pursuing their studies.
People need to understand what happens in our foster care system. Not in a nation far away, in America right now. What is happening to kids who cannot live with their parents for one reason or another that has nothing to do with the child? If a child's parent is incarcerated, or if a child's parent dies like mine did, and you don't have relatives who are willing to step up or can step up because they have priors or something, or they can't even afford to take care of these children, then they're going to be languishing in these institutions and then growing up to end up in the prison system, which a lot of them do, or end up being homeless. It's an ongoing problem. It just doesn't stop in foster care. It affects everybody, whether you realize it or not. And we need to talk about this. We need to really dive in. Like, how can we help these kids?
Like a stray, I've been thrown to the back of a dog catcher's truck and taken to a shelter. I've been placed inside a cage, and occasionally through the bars, someone would pet me, but no one really wanted to take me. Most people were only interested in the puppies or kittens because there was something instinctively maternal about bringing an animal up from a young age. It made more sense. What if the stray dog had been abused or suffered from some unknown ailment that might just make it snap one day? Could anyone really trust a stray like me? My mom was an alcoholic as well as a drug user, so we didn't really see much of her. My mom, because she was a drug addict, she would come to the home and steal our belongings. She would kind of make things difficult as far as like taking most of our stuff in the home and selling it. And so at that point, we were left with limited resources, and my grandmother couldn't afford to provide for us anymore, and so we were placed into foster care.
We moved around a lot. So I was in this big, nice house in San Diego. And once my mother married this biker man named Mad Dog, who had a misspelled tattoo, we We lived in cars, we lived in homeless shelters. I mean, I bounced around. It was like being pre-foster care. I moved around every year. I just turned 13 when I started puberty, and I was already tall, but I was starting to develop into a woman. I wanted to stay skinny, so I started dieting, taking long walks in the desert, and about 6 months of that, my stepfather, who I didn't know what the term was called, but he was grooming me. He said, you know, just try a little of this powdered stuff. I'm like, what's this powdered stuff? And it was cocaine. I was so desperate, so I started just to try a little bit. And of course I was hooked. One night he took off my clothes and just told me to be careful, be quiet, don't wake anyone up. And he was just, gonna teach me how to be a woman. He's whispering in my ear that my mom knows all about it and she's okay with it. You just do what you're told. And there's fight or flight or freeze. I froze. And so he said, I think it's time that we show your mother what we've been doing and what you've been learning from me. We were in the master bedroom and my mother was very quiet and he took over. He's just like, this is what I've been showing your daughter. And it was really like, in a weird, strange way, I looked at it as a tutorial. I mean, I had it in my brain. It was just, I don't know, for me to get through it. I looked at it as an instructional video. It's just showing what I've learned. It was mechanical to me. And then in the course of me showing what I've learned with my stepfather, he invited my mother in. That kind of freaked me out, but I didn't want to show it because I was scared my mother seemed into it, and I was very confused, but I just my brain left my body at that point. And then shortly after, I left the room very quickly. I said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I was just in the hot shower for the longest time. And then after that, I went to my own bedroom and just thought, I just had to put it out of my brain and just said, I will never let that happen again. I can't do this. I can't do this. And thankfully, it never happened again. That was the only time my mother sexually abused me. It was the only time. It really was that just one time. My stepfather was arrested for child endangerment and drug possession. And so he went to jail. And my mother at this time still was taking drugs, and 6 months later, after my stepfather was arrested, she died.
There's a great need for children to be residing in loving and caring homes where the home could provide them the stability that they need until they are either reunified with their families or remaining for adoption.
I was just thrown into this new situation where I'm with a new family who, in some cases, didn't really display the affection or show the love that you would show, your own kids. And so I felt that, and I didn't like it, and I rebelled against the rules and acted out at school. I kind of lost respect for authority figures, things of that nature. When my brother was separated from me during our second home, our social workers arrived at the same time, and he was placed in one vehicle, and I was about to leave in the second vehicle, but as he got into the car, I could see once they closed the door, we made eye contact, and he put his hand on the glass of the window, and he was mouthing my name, and I just felt like my heart was like ripped into 1,000 pieces because I could no longer protect him in that moment. I knew that he was going somewhere else and I was going somewhere else.
Imagine being a 2 or 3-year-old, being taken from your mother in the middle of the night. Often there's a police officer there. Your mother's crying for you, you're crying for mommy. You're taken with strangers into a strange office where you're then told, we don't know when you can see mommy again. We're going to try and get a hold of grandma or auntie. And then grandma or auntie, who often is a highly overstressed person with many children that she's caring for, has got to come to terms with, I have to feed, clothe, house, and school another child. How can I possibly do that? And that causes torment for her household as well. In the meantime, that child's in limbo, not knowing what her future is going to be. And we know the trauma during that time infects her soul because of the absolute stress. The number one need of a child is security.
I entered foster care in the back of a police car, and the cop took me and my sister, I was age 14, she was 12, to this receiving home. And I didn't know what to expect. I never heard of foster care. I just didn't know anything. I didn't know what to expect. And so when I entered the foster care system in this facility, I was really struck by how institutional it was.
Unfortunately, what happens when children experience trauma that goes unaddressed for years, they engage in acting out behaviors that sometimes have them placed in a group home setting where they can experience institutionalization, not being in a family setting, in a more intimate setting, but being more in a facility where instead of foster parents taking care for them, it's staff and different workers that are supervising them, where they're housed with other teens around their age. And the difficulty in that is that they get used to the institutionalized setting of different times to eat, very controlled schooling environments, overall very controlled environment, that it makes a transition going back to a lower level setting like a home setting, a more intimate setting, more challenging for them.
Before you go through from the outside to inside, everything had to be buzzed by someone on the inside. So we were buzzed inside. So I couldn't just go up to the door and open it or knock on it. I had to be buzzed in. So I was buzzed in, and then I just had to listen to a bunch of staff with a name tag, and everybody was just very procedural, transactional. It was just very orderly. There was no warmth whatsoever. I'd just gone through all this trauma, and not a single person, said, hey, would you guys like some hot chocolate? Or, hey, how's it going? None of that existed. It was just like, okay, you guys sit there, and here's some paperwork to fill out. Make an inventory list of all the stuff that you have with you. And the cops were coming in and out, and it was just very, like I said, orderly.
During my time in foster care, I had 4 social workers in total. Each of them were women. In the beginning, the first 2 weren't so great. They would have to visit. They were required to visit with me once a month, and sometimes they would reschedule a lot. Or when I would call and leave voice messages, they wouldn't return my phone calls. It was almost impossible to get in contact with them. The social workers changed a lot because, as they often would tell me, is that they have a lot of caseloads, and that they had to run all over the city, and that that they were pretty much overworked.
The most important person in your life when you're in foster care is a social worker. They are the link, the primary person to not just services, but to family members. The social worker's job for a child is to make sure that that child is placed in a safe, loving, stable home. That's it. That is their primary job. The social workers has to juggle a lot, and I've had good ones and I've had bad ones. The good ones were you can tell when someone's listening to you, and that was the first thing. I really felt that the social worker just didn't pay attention to what was on the court reports or what people said about me. They were just focused on me and what my needs were, and they wanted to know how things were going from my perspective. And when they listened to me and asked those great questions that really made me feel like they cared, I opened up to more, and they got more information that eventually helped them do their job a lot better. Then the bad ones that I've had were just, they were so jaded and burnt out. They just were going through the motions.
Looking back on my experience now, I think a lot of the foster parents, in my case, did not have the right intentions. In some cases, I remember them mentioning things such as, we don't get paid enough money to take care of you guys.
The most toxic risk factor is to be in foster care placement and be detached from a loving home and never have that attachment repaired with other relationships that bring in love, care, devotion, respect, and commitment. What's missing most from a foster child's journey is anyone who's committed to them with a commitment of care, of love, of devotion. One of the most common reflections when I would ask a foster child, what's the most difficult thing about your journey? They would say, well, you feel no one is in your corner. And it's that loneliness that we have to understand that has been created at the point of taking a child from a home that may be dysfunctional, but where the bonds of love have been very real and those wounds become very raw. And then the average child who's placed in care in the county is 0 to 5 years old.
I think as humans, we all are searching for love, whether it's from, family or somewhere else. We all gravitate towards love. And if, as foster parents, if they show that to the children, then they would gravitate and have a much more happy experience and want to do better and enjoy where they live.
But I've also had some good experiences in foster care. There are people who do genuinely care about you, or at least they did for me. And one of them was my last foster mom who saved my life. And this is actually the neighborhood where I grew up with, or I ended my years in foster care, because of this wonderful woman who was a high school teacher who took a chance with me, never had kids, and she liked the fact that I read books. She even said, to quote her, any kid who likes to read books on their own without anyone telling them can't be that bad. And so she took a chance, and we're still very close to this day. And I just gotta say that even though I went through hell to get to where I ended up, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it weren't for that one last foster mother who took a chance with me. And I owe her everything.
And I was shocked to find that the common answer was, on my 18th birthday, my group home worker came in, gave me a bag, pack up your stuff, here's a list of shelters, here's some bus tokens, good luck with the rest of your life. And once they're on the streets of Hollywood, the temptation then is to do street crime, we call it survival sex, prostitute their bodies to survive. They often get involved in the justice system. Their belongings are stolen, their identification is stolen, and they're moved down the path towards invisibility and feeling irrelevant to society.
Former foster youth are more vulnerable than the young people who did not go through the system, because they are faced with, let's say, different obstacles than most people are, as far as not having stable housing, not having support when you're in tough situations, or just the lack of security and the unstable ways in growing up that you're not taught certain things that I would say most people are taught in a conventional home. And so when it's time to age out and you're just thrown into the real world, a lot of foster youth have time navigating it and becoming successful.
What's important is for social workers that are working with Child Protective Services to be able to have a manageable caseload, no more than 12 to 14 families that they're working with, to be able to successfully provide them the level of services and care that they need, individualized to all of their family. So the types of supports and services that could be put in place for prevention, whether it's a family struggling with domestic violence issues or substance abuse concerns, or who need support in accessing employment or safe housing to keep their families together. The services need to be able to go in and successfully help the families stay together and address whatever underlying needs that the family is dealing with so that they can be successful.
And ultimately, foster care is about the relationship deficits in our society, and at what we as the parents of these children, keep in mind, we've taken these children into care on the auspice of protecting them. Foster care is the name of the whole program. Foster to promote care. And what do? We foster carelessness. We foster warehousing. We foster medication. Foster youth disproportionately are medicated demographically. They are the highest level consumers of psychotropic medication in the country.
I have 3 ideas. One of them is family reunification. I think there just needs to be more units, a lot more effort in finding families, not just immediate, they don't work out, really branch out to the extended, second cousin, third remove, whatever. Just there needs to be technology for that. If it doesn't exist, it needs to be developed, and that needs to be everywhere. The second one would be lessening the caseloads for these social workers. Okay, social workers get a bad rep. Yeah, there's some bad ones out there, but there are a lot of good ones out there too. And every social worker I've met, they've been overloaded. I've heard of some social workers have 35 caseloads. That's 35 kids for one person to find homes for. That's a lot. And then finally, look at the intentions of these foster families. There's a lot of them that go into this with bad intentions. They go in, I know for personal experience that some families go into it for the paycheck. And that needs to be vetted and looked at more.
Even though I didn't grow up with the best resources, I'm from Compton, California, I think it doesn't matter where you come from in life and whether you're raised in South Central LA, Compton, or whether you're raised in Beverly Hills, everyone deserves an equal chance and an equal shot at the American dream.